Good day, everyone. We are going to present the evolution of the Philippine Constitution. Here are the presenters: Karen Miro, Stephanie Lara Fortun, and Mary Grace Lopez. First, I am going to discuss what is Constitution. Constitution is defined as a set of fundamental principle or established precedent according to which a state or other organization is governed. Thus, the word itself means to be part of a whole, the coming together of distinct entities into one group with the same principles and ideals. This defines the nature and extent of government. The Constitution of the Philippines, the supreme law of the Republic of the Philippines, has been in effect since 1987. There were only three other constitutions that have effectively governed the country: the 1935 Commonwealth Constitution, the 1973 Constitution, and the 1986 Freedom Constitution. However, there were earlier constitutions attempted by Filipinos in the struggle to break free from the colonial yoke. The first constitution is the 1897 Constitution of Biak na Bato. It is based on Cuban Constitution and drafted by Felix Ferrer and Isabelo Artacho. It is known as the Constitution Provisional de la República de Filipinas and was originally written in and promulgated in the Spanish and Tagalog languages. The Constitution provided a Supreme Council where Emilio Aguinaldo and Mariano Trias were elected as Supreme Council President and Vice President. The first presidential and vice presidential elections in the Philippine history were held. Although only Katipuneros, or members of the Katipunan, were able to take part and not the general populace. The Constitution of Biak na Bato was the provisionary constitution of the Philippine Republic during the Philippine Revolution. The Katipunan's revolution led to the Tejeros Convention, where, at San Francisco de Malabon, Cavite, on March 22, 1897, a later meeting of the revolutionary government established there, held on November 1, 1897, at Biak na Bato in the town of San Miguel de Mayumo in Bulacan. Here are the organs of the government under the Constitution of Biak na Bato. First, Supreme Council. 4 departments secretaries: Interior, Foreign Affairs, Treasury, and War, which was vested with the power of the Republic headed by the President. And 2. Consejo Supremo de Gracia y Justicia, Supreme Council of Grace and Justice, which has given the authority to make decisions and affirm or disprove the sentences rendered by other courts and dictate rules for the administration of justice. Number 3. Assembly de Representantes, or Assembly of the Representatives, which was to be convened after the revolution to create a new constitution and to elect a new council of government and representative of the people. Let's now proceed to the preamble of Biak na Bato. The separation of the Philippines from the Spanish monarchy and their formation into an independent state with its own government called the Philippine Republic has been the end sought by the revolution in the existing war, which began on the 24th of August, 1896, and therefore, in its name and by the power delegated by the Filipino people, interpreting faithfully their desires and ambitions, we, the representatives of the revolution, in a meeting at Biak na Bato, November 1, 1897, unanimously adopted the following articles for the Constitution of the state.
The Malolos Constitution of 1899. This was approved with the Congress on November 29, 1898, and promulgated by Aguinaldo on January 21, 1899. This was titled the Political Constitution of 1899. The Constitution is composed of 39 articles divided into 14 titles, with 8 articles of transitory provisions and the final additional article. Malolos Constitution was the basic law of the First Philippine Republic. It is also the first important Filipino document by the Philippine representatives. It was drafted and adopted by the Philippine Republic, which lasted for 3 years from 1899 to 1901. The people delegated governmental functions to civil servants while they retained actual sovereignty. The 27 articles of Article 4 detail the natural rights and popular sovereignty of Filipinos. Title 3, Article 5 also declares that the states recognizes the freedom and equality of all beliefs, as well as the separation of the church and the state. It is anchored in democratic traditions that ultimately had their roots in American soil. It also created a Filipino state whose government was popular, representative, and responsible, with three distinct branches such as the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. This was the development leading to its establishment. First is the establishment of the dictatorial government on May 24, 1898. Second, the declaration of Philippine independence on June 12, 1898. Third is the recognition of the local government on June 18, 1898. Fourth is the establishment of revolutionary government on June 23, 1898. And lastly is the Malolos Congress. The Malolos Constitution was written by Felipe Calderon y Roca and Felipe Buencamino as an alternative to pair of proposals to Malolos Congress by Apolinario Mabini and Pedro Paterno. Following the declaration of independence from Spain on June 12, 1898, and the transformation of the dictatorial government to a revolutionary government on June 23, the Malolos Congress election was held between June 23 and September 10, 1898. The Revolutionary Congress convened in Barasuan Church in Malolos as Pedro Paterno the president and Gregorio S. Araneta as the vice president. On September 29, the June 12 Declaration of the Philippine Independence was ratified. Then the Congress decided to draft the decision opposed by Mabini, the Prime Minister of the Revolutionary Government. This constitution was specifically provided for safeguards against abuses and enumerated the national and individual rights not only to Filipinos and of the aliens. It states the basic civil rights, separated the church from the state, and called the creation of an assembly of representatives which would act as the legislative body. It also calls for a presidential form of government with the president elected for a term of 4 years by a majority of the Assembly, the authentic and official constitution of La República Filipina, or the Philippine Republic. Here are some achievements of the Malolos Constitution. Stop the disgraceful treatment of the Spanish prisoners. All classes of crime were to be tried by competent military tribunal. June 12, 1898, the proclamation of the Philippine independence as stated before. Official unfurling of Philippine national flag by Marcela Agoncillo and assisted by Lorenzo Agoncillo and Delfina Barbosa, and the birth of national anthem. Legislation Declaration of Independence enactment on June 12, 1895 and ratified on September 29, 1898, and then the declaration of war against the Spanish is enactment on June 2, 1899 and was ratified on June 2, 1899 as well. It was established with the proclamation of the Malolos Constitution on January 29, 1899 in Malolos, Bulacan until the capture of the President Emilio Aguinaldo by the American forces on March 23, 1901 in Palanar, Isabela, which effectively dissolved the First Republic. The Constitution as a whole is a monument to the capacity of Filipinos to chart their own course along the democratic lines in a period of storm and stress, symbolized the ideas of a people who had emerged from the Dark Ages to the Light Ages. Preamble of Malolos Constitution. We, the representative of the Filipino people, lawfully convened in order to establish justice, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and ensure the benefits of the liberty, imploring the aid of the sovereign legislator of the universe for the attainment of these ends, have voted, decreed, and sanctioned the following political constitution.
The 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. It was worth mentioning that after the Treaty of Paris, Our country, which is the Philippines, was subjected to the power of the United States of America, which is the new effective colonizers of the country. Therefore, we are under the jurisdiction of Federal of U.S. Commonwealth is a traditional English term which is synonymous to a nation, state, or other political unit. The 1935 Constitution of the Philippines was written and adopted by the Commonwealth of the Philippines that governed the country from the year 1935 to 1946. Later on, it was used by the Third Republic of the Philippines starting from the year 1946 to 1972. Commonwealth Constitution was crafted to meet the approval of U.S. and to ensure that the U.S. would live up to its promise to grant the independence to the Philippines. The Constitution provided a legal basis of the Commonwealth government, which was considered a transitional administration to prepare the country towards its full achievement of independence. Commonwealth Constitution provided for a unicameral National Assembly with a president and a vice president elected to a 6-year term without re-election. When we say unicameral, it means having a single legislative or one chambered. On the year 1940, it was amended to have a bicameral Congress, which has 2 chambers, often with different procedures and powers. On a bicameral Congress, the term of the president and the vice president was limited to 4 years with 1 re-election. 2 acts of U.S. were passed that may be considered to have the qualities of constitutionality. These acts defined the fundamental political principles and established the structure, procedures, powers, and duties of the Philippine government. The first act is the Philippine Organic Act of 1902 or the Cooper Act. It was the first organization law of the Philippine Islands enacted by U.S. Congress that provided for the creation of a popularly elected Philippine Assembly. The act specified that the legislative power would be vested in a bicameral legislature composed of the Philippine Commission as the upper house and the Philippine Assembly as the lower house. Is the Philippine Autonomy Act, or commonly referred to as Jones Law of year 1916. It modifies the structure of the Philippine government through the removal of the Philippine Commission, replacing it with a Senate. It was also in this act that explicitly declared the purpose of the U.S. to end its sovereignty over the Philippines and recognize Philippine independence as soon as stable government can be established. On the year 1932, the Hare-Haas Cutting Act, or the Osrox Mission, is made with the efforts of the Filipino Independence Mission led by Sergio Osmeña and Manuel Rojas. That is why it is called Osrox Mission. This act is about the promise of granting Filipino independence. The bill was opposed by Senate President Manuel Quezon and rejected by the Philippine Senate. On the year 1934, Tidings-McDuffie Act, also known as the Philippine Independence Act, provided authority and defined mechanisms for the establishment of a formal constitution via a constitutional convention. The draft of the constitution was approved by the Constitutional Convention on the 8th of February 1935. On March 25, 1935, it was ratified by the U.S. President named Franklin B. Roosevelt. Manuel L. Quezon was elected the President of the Commonwealth on September 1935, and the Commonwealth was briefly interrupted by the events of the World War II, with the Japanese occupying the Philippines. Afterwards, upon liberation, our country was declared an independent republic on the 4th of July, year 1946. The accomplishments of 1935 Commonwealth Constitution. First is the establishment of bank for farmers. Second is the education of the people in all parts of the country. Third is the improvement in the country's communication system and infrastructure. Fourth is the provision of irrigation system. And fifth is the establishment of the National Library. Preamble of Commonwealth Constitution. the Filipino people, imploring the aid of divine providence in order to establish a government that shall embody their ideals, conserve and develop the patrimony of the nation, promote the general welfare, and secure to themselves and their posterity the blessings of independence under a regime of justice, liberty, and democracy, do ordain and promulgate this Constitution.